Hello, everyone. Welcome to Ask a Care Navigator, Mondays with Maureen. Hello, everyone. I'm Maureen Williams, and I'm the Director of Care Navigation here at Four Seasons, the Care You Trust. And as you can see, I have a very special guest, and you'll hear from Koral in just a moment. We try to create this space on most Mondays to talk about issues associated with living well and aging well, and perhaps how Four Seasons may be of assistance. We love to have these sessions because we really like to train the public on what you need to know about what's going on in life and how to live well and age well. As always, if you have any questions or comments, you can drop them into the comments box, either now live or later. You can call us at 866 466 9734, or you can go to our website. Lots of great information there. Go to fourseasonscare.org and spell out the number 4. I'm joined by Koral Alman, and she's a special friend of Four Seasons and to me. Please tell us who you are, what you do.
Sure. My name's Koral Alman. I'm a partner with the Winkle Law Firm. I'm also pleased to serve on the Four Seasons Board of Directors. And my legal practice as an attorney focuses primarily on estate planning and then also estate administrations and trust administrations, which is really helping families navigate the legal process after they've lost a loved one.
Absolutely. And Koral and I and Four Seasons intersect upstream from that too,
yes.
and helping people craft their estate plans in particular. And I have to thank her for being on our planned giving committee too, because that's how all this came about.
Sure.
So thank you for serving.
Yeah.
Well, I want to just turn the time over entirely to Koral to talk about charitable giving.
Sure.
And so I want us all to learn about this because this is a good way to live well and age well.
Yeah.
So
I want to talk about 3 things today. The first is sort of why you want to be charitably inclined in any capacity. The second is how to incorporate charitable giving into your estate plan, so after your death, but then also how you can incorporate estate or charitable giving into your life now while you're living, and some of the benefits of all of those things. So, I mean, everyone knows why we should give charitably, but sometimes it's nice to remind ourselves of some of the things and the benefits of that, so you're able to build and strengthen your community. You're able to support organizations that are near and dear to your heart. Right. And one that we see a lot in our practice area is the ability to educate your family about how to be charitably inclined, to show by doing, and by also showing these are the organizations that are meaningful to me, and kind of educating the next generation on the ability to give now or after your life. So that's why we might want to give, and then how do we actually do that? Right. So you can give as part of your estate plan, and this is a wonderful opportunity for me to pitch the fact that everyone needs an estate plan.
Yes.
Everyone.
I agree. Completely.
How small or big your estate is, everyone needs to have at least some basic documents in place. That is because those documents help take care of you now while you're alive in the event of incapacity or just the natural aging process. And it also allows you to control what happens to your assets at your death. Right. The state of North Carolina tries to figure out what might be an equitable plan for you if you don't have a will, but it's almost never what, with that almost, what someone actually wants. So that's your pitch to please, doesn't have to be me, but talk to some estate planning attorney to get your documents and your affairs
in order. Interject a quick
of
question?
Course.
You have 4 documents. Can you just list them? Because I've quoted you before.
Yes. So there are 4 documents that we do as part of our estate planning package for what I call the during life documents, and then a 5th that is for afterlife. So the during life is a living will or advance directive. That's end of life decision making and presumes that you don't want to be kept alive artificially. A healthcare power of attorney to appoint someone to help manage or make decisions for you when you're unable to do so for yourself. A HIPAA authorization so that your physicians and nurses can actually communicate with the agents that you've appointed. And then 4th, during life document is a durable power of attorney, durable general power of attorney, which is for financial decision making. Right. So you're appointing 2 people to manage your affairs, healthcare and financial, and then you're just making sure that all of the other decisions are kind of incorporated. And then that 5th, I always use my thumb for, is the last will and testament. That document only has effect after your death. And those first 4 only have effect during your life. So you cannot use a power of attorney to manage the affairs of someone after they've died. Right.
Thank you.
So your last will and testament is where you could incorporate estate planning. Right. I'm sorry, charitable giving.
Yes.
And there's lots of ways you can do that. You can do that as part of a specific bequest. I'm giving $10,000 to Four Seasons for its unrestricted use. You could do it as a percentage. I'm living 10% of my estate to Four Seasons for its unrestricted use. You could do a demonstrative device, which is kind of a complicated concept, and it's not really what we would recommend, but it's an option. And then you could also include a charity as an alternate beneficiary. So I leave everything to my spouse if they just survive me, then in equal shares to my children and then their children. What happens in the calamity where there is no one that I have named left?
Right.
In that situation, we always include a clause that's your alternate beneficiary. The standard that at least we use is all of your heirs at law. So we search your family tree until we find someone you're related to.
Nieces, nephews, cousins,
whoever, grandparents, long lost relatives that you've never met from Kentucky, whatever. Or you might not want it to go to some family member you've never met before or don't even know exists, and you can instead leave it to a charity in that case.
Oh, nice.
Which is a nice sort of like catch-all. It keeps it somewhere close to you. It allows you to provide for your family the way you would want. But if something happens, we at least know it's going to an organization that you really love and support. You'll note that when I gave all those examples, I said for its unrestricted use. I did that on purpose because that allows the organization to use the money where it actually has a need. You can alternatively say for a capital improvement, a building development, or to create the Koral Alman fund or something. You can do that. I will say that in my practice, I have seen situations where folks gave money for a very specific use and that use no longer exists. A classic example of that you might think of is March of Dimes. Their organizational focus has had to shift because the needs of the community have shifted. And if I gave money only for what they were doing when I was 8, it's not even remotely the same to what they're doing now. So if you're including language like for its unrestricted use, that's a wonderful way to let the organization figure out what is its most important and pressing need. So that's part of your will. And some people love to do that. Either it's an organization that's very near and dear to their heart or they want to have this backup plan. But why wait? Why delay the gratification that you can enjoy now? So before I switch to giving now, is there any questions that?
Oh, I have lots of questions, but it's too many rabbit trails. So
okay.
Like the thing that you said, we don't do much, so I'm curious, but that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah.
Well,
okay.
This is great, and I will say this to our audience. I've always worked for nonprofits, Koral, and we've always been so blessed by people offering donations. And that unrestricted use really does help a reputable nonprofit.
Yes.
Use it for the greatest need at the time. So thank you all for that.
Yeah, and you can use Charity Navigator and other organizations to help make sure that organizations are deserving of your money, which is just a way to kind of shore up your plan. So those are all some ideas for how you could include charitable intent as part of your estate plan. But there's lots of ways that you can also give charitably now. I mean, the most common ways are just to write a check or to donate gifts in kind and get that little receipt that you can take to your tax preparer. But there are some more robust options as well. So one is something called a donor advised fund. This is a fund that you establish with a qualified administrator like a community foundation or your financial advisor, and it's an account and a vehicle that's designed really for charitable giving. Okay. So the donor puts money into the account, and gets a tax benefit for doing that. But then, as the name implies, it's a donor advised fund. You get to then dictate how and when those funds go to places. It is a very flexible option, and it's a very popular option. Right. You get this perk, you get to have the control, and you get to see the benefit because you're alive while you're doing it. So I want to see how this money is impacted. It also kind of gives you a little bit of leverage, right? Well, I want you to use it for something that I see, and I want to see how you use it. If I don't love that, great.
I'll remove my money.
Yeah, I can go somewhere. I can give it to someone else. Gotcha. Right. You can give it to multiple organizations. You can give it all to one. You can do it across years. The key here is you want to make sure it's properly set up with an administrator that is doing it. You have to sign an agreement and kind of put the whole plan together. That being said, it's probably the easiest to actually carry out.
Oh, okay.
Right. You go and you speak with your financial advisor. They pull up the donor advised fund, onboarding documentation, you fill that out, you transfer your assets, etc. One other concept that's kind of important in a lot of these things is using appreciated assets. So one thing you can do with the organization is I can give to Four Seasons stocks that I own that have significant cost base or capital gains kind of cooked in. So I bought Apple the first day for 14 cents, and I don't know what it's worth today, but it's way more than 14 cents, right? But I'm still holding on to it. That difference between what I bought it for and what it's worth now is your unrealized capital gain. Gotcha. And if I sell that, I am paying tax on that.
Right.
But if I give that Apple stock to Four Seasons, they get the benefit of the value today, but I'm not realizing that capital gain. So
Gotcha.
Using that appreciated stock can be a really, really interesting tax approach to charitable giving.
That sounds very creative. I would bet that's happening more often than those of us on the street know about.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And I will say, just to flip back to the after death conversation, there is a wrinkle in the tax statutes that says your cost basis, so in that example, 14 cents versus whatever it is today, gets wiped out automatically at your death. Okay, so your cost basis gets automatically adjusted to the value at your date of death, which means that there's almost no, capital gain built in. Also, often very little capital loss, which is another perk. It helps when you're giving to your family,
it's a benefit,
right? But it's something to be discussing with your accountant and your estate planning attorney and your financial advisor. So those are donor advised funds. There's also an option called a charitable remainder trust or a charitable lead trust. And I don't want to go into too much of the weeds of these because they're not super popular anymore and they can be a little complicated. But the concept is that you are putting assets into an irrevocable trust, one that you cannot then modify, although you can, just it's a little harder.
Talk to an estate attorney.
And you retain some benefit and the charity gets some benefit. And it depends. A charitable remainder trust, the charity gets it at the end. A charitable lead, the charity gets it at the beginning. And there are some different tax strategies that can be employed for those. They're not quite as popular. Right. And the big thing that our clients don't love is that irrevocable component, and it's giving up control. Whereas with that donor advised fund, you get to advise where that money goes. Right. We have also had situations where these trusts were ongoing for a number of years and the organization doesn't exist anymore. Or the trust is no longer economically being administered. We really need to just get this money out to whoever needs it. So that's why I'm not talking about them too much. I'm flagging that they exist, but we don't necessarily need, they may not be the best tool.
But some of our listeners may have those in place already and may need to be thinking about that.
And some have options to allow you to change your charities. Right. You just want to be reviewing them as part of your regular estate planning review. I always tell folks you should be looking at them at least every 5 to 7 years. Or if there is a major life event, someone is born, someone died, you win the lottery, whatever it is, something big happens, that should be a flag in the back of your brain. I need to talk to my attorney. I don't have to be the first person you call when someone dies, although I'm happy to help also with that process. But at least know when you have that running to-do list of all the adult stuff we have to take care of. And one of those things is, I have a client, and I've told you this before, who I think has a calendar reminder about every 3 years. And she calls and she says, can you remind me of what my estate plan says? And I remind her and she goes, yep, that's what I want.
Perfect.
That's it. But she has the peace of mind of knowing, yep, it's still what I want. Right. Yep, it's still what I want. Right. Yep, it's still what I want. And at one of those days, we're going to have that call and she's going to go, ooh, that guy died. Exactly. He can't be the executor anymore.
I quote you often on this, and regular viewers know that, about checking your documents. Yeah. Look at, when you get to a certain age, like her, you should check them more often. This lady. Yeah. So I quote you often, so that there's a real-time reason why.
Yeah. So those are two options to give sort of now and have some benefits. This is less of like a estate planning concept, but more of just a strategy. So you're writing that check to Four Seasons every year. As most of you know, the standard deduction for your personal tax returns increased significantly a few years back, meaning it is harder to itemize.
Got it.
One thing we have seen folks do is instead of giving $5,000, instead of giving $10,000 every year, they bunch these contributions. So they give $20,000 in an odd number a year, skip the even, and then give 20 the next year. And they're able to itemize in that year where they've made a big chunk. You're still giving effectively 10, 10, 10, 10, but you're bunching it together so that you can get the tax benefit of it. And then you would just use the standard deduction in the year that you're not making.
Exactly.
Right? That's worked very well for folks, and you can even combine that with your donor advised fund so that you're doing a bunching and funding it, but then still meeting it out over the time period. There's lots of options if you talk to your resources and learn what those options are. And then the last one that I really want to talk about is a qualified charitable distribution, or a QCD. And that is something that is very popular for folks who are at an age where they have an IRA and are having to take out the required minimum distribution, or RMD. Okay, so eligible IRA owners are able to basically, instead of taking that RMD, which counts as income to them, they are able to make a distribution called a qualified charitable distribution, a QCD, out of their IRA directly to the charity. Okay,
wow.
And that is up to $108,000 for 2024. That number is adjusted annually with inflation. Next year it'll be, who knows, 109, 110. We'll see how bad inflation gets. But it's a really nice option for folks who don't need that income from their IRA, and it can help prevent them from maybe bumping up into a higher tax bracket or losing the benefit of some tax credits that you have to be at a certain income level to qualify for. The big thing with a QCD is you need to be very careful about how you are doing it, okay? Meaning you need to talk to both your financial advisor with whom the IRA is held and the organization to whom you're donating it.
Okay.
And make sure that you are doing it correctly, because the tax penalty for messing this one up is not great, right? We don't want to mess it up. It's a super great option. You just really want to dot those I's and cross those T's. Okay. Because I am here with Four Seasons, I will note that for Four Seasons, y'all have a supporting organization and a foundation. And you need to make sure, we should double check this with the Planned Giving folks, with Stephanie Wilson. I believe it has to be made directly to the foundation, using that tax ID number and address and name, so that the QCD correctly goes to the right place, not the supporting organization, and therefore you get the tax benefit. Okay, so all of that is just to highlight, do these things right, and you get a big tax benefit. QCDs, I mean, really any of them, you can mess up and then there might be some adverse consequences. But the idea here, at least for our conversation, is for folks to be thinking about these and having the conversation with their advisors. Is this one appropriate for me? Is that one? And we are happy to always have kind of a big meeting with all of your advisors. Get the financial advisor on the phone, get your CPA on the phone, have me in the room, and we're going to talk about, we've got all this appreciated stock. How do we want to do that? And the CPA says, well, you know, she's, even if she gave whatever, she's not going to be able to itemize this year. So maybe we bunch it and we do it January 1, right? You get the feeling of it soon, but it's technically the next tax year. So these are all just sort of broad concepts for how you can give with your money. Now or after.
I love how you just pulled that all three together. I don't know if y'all noticed, but it's twice you've mentioned the accountant, the financial advisor, and the estate attorney. And you're bringing the legal piece here. The financial advisor is advising you within that law, and the accountant's doing it within that. And so the laws change, is what I'm hearing.
Well, yes, and we're always, particularly on the tax side, we're always sort of bracing for what's changing and what's coming. There's always lots of talk about, oh, they're going to eliminate this, or they're going to increase that, and we don't know until we know.
That's especially true this date in time.
Yes. So we try not to, really, really hypothesize about, well, this is definitely going to happen in December.
We just don't
We have
know.
no idea. Right.
Okay.
So, the big conversation lately has been the estate tax exemption. And is that going to get, right now it's scheduled to sunset at the end of the year. Is that going to get cut in half? Is it going to get eliminated? Is it going to, we have no idea. We can't know. We have thoughts. We have guesses, but we'll have to see what happens and how the cogs of Congress turn or don't turn.
Or don't turn.
Yeah.
I'm kind of breathless as to how
Sorry,
much.
that was a
No,
lot.
this is great because we can go back and look at this again because some of our viewers are having conversations with themselves or their family members. What do I do? How do I leave a legacy? How do I make sure that I'm known in future generations? How do I take care of my family at the same time? That's part of living well and aging well, I think. An estate attorney is immensely helpful. A good accountant is immensely helpful, and a great financial advisor is helpful. Fortunately, with Four Seasons, we have all sorts of those people helping us through our Planned Giving Foundation. So, Coral's the first one from the Planned Giving Foundation talking to us this year. So, we're going to have other members of our Planned Giving committee, from the Four Seasons Foundation talking to us throughout the year. So, some of you just have some wheels turning. They may just need to spin faster now for whatever reason.
And you may get some of your questions answered when Mary Margaret comes on or Justice comes on or any of the other folks.
Oh, this is great. I want to give a shout out to Koral because she also gives to Four Seasons as a volunteer. You know, you heard she's on our board. She's on our Planned Giving committee. I think that's a form of charitable giving. Absolutely. In fact, Four Seasons really relies on our volunteers. So thank you very much.
There's lots of ways to give, and it does not always have to be financial. Although the finances help keep the thing moving. So.
It keeps up. The donations to Four Seasons really do help us provide care regardless of ability to pay across all of our service lines. All of us. We can just say yes to anyone who calls us. We can help you even if you don't have the means to pay for it or insurance. So it's a blessing. Thank you.
I'm happy to be here and happy to come back and answer.
She'll be back. Thank you, Koral.
Thank you,
well,
Maureen.
As always, if you have questions and you're viewing later, you can drop them in the box. You can call us 866-466-9734. Go to our website, fourseasonscare.org. And if you wish to speak to Koral Alman further about estate planning, she's with Winkle Law. We're right here in Hendersonville where she's a partner. So feel free to give this practice a call as well. Thank you. Thank you so much. Join me next Monday, which is April the 7th. Oh my goodness. And we'll talk about another issue associated with living well and aging well and see where it takes us. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks.